Mitchell, and my job is to make people awesome. And it's going to be a bit hard today because I watched your awesome dancing and I hung back. Because you're all fabulous. But, simple question to start the day. Good morning, how are you feeling? Who's doing well? Just do this. Little test, put your hands in the air like this. Reach over to the people on either side of you, pat them on the back and say, it's good to see you today. I love watching people do this. It all depends on which environment you're in. I've spent the last 3 weeks travelling around Australia. I've been in Swan Hill, I've been in Hobart, I've been in South Yarra and central Melbourne, and I've been in Portland, working with 3 different schools, and yesterday I was in Ballarat. And each one of those are all different groups, from parents to teachers to working with kids in classrooms. And the biggest single thing I notice is how well people get along. I do lots of awesome things, but the biggest thing that I think I do is check out how people behave. And how people behave is pretty simple. All you've got to do is walk into any institution and go like this. Let's see how they treat you. And when they go, you go, good to see you, and you feel at home, right? Who's ever walked in those places where you go, and they go, there's a guy in the bridge, the worst place in the world to do this is high school classes. Year 9 girls can kill you. I walked into one class, I'm all dressed up, I got my suit, tie on, everything, walk in, smile. This girl doesn't even look at me. She turns to the girl next to her and goes, he's got pink on his tie, he must be gay. I thought, she's got a big mouth, she must be a bitch. And I was right, she was wrong. The trouble is in Australia, if you turn up and you want to be happy, people think you're suspect, don't they? And I suffer from enthusiasm, I really do. I love every day of my life, and I think every day I wake up and there's breath, it's going to be a good one. And I pump the I prime the pump, I do simple things, I do my first exercises. I was doing retreats in Bali this holidays for teachers, and I found out why the Balinese will live all longer than we do. It's called squat toilets. Because if you do this a lot, it's really good for you. Gets the heart going and stuff, so I try to do 40 of these to get the pump started, right? It hurts. But it's good for me. And then the next thing I think of is, what are 3 good things that I'm grateful for? And you think about it. What are 3 things that you're grateful for? Do that. Just think. Do a quick TTYPA, which stands for turn to your partner and put the hand behind your head like that. Because that's where your gratefulness comes in. But that's when you smile, you can feel it. Do this.
Where?
Can you feel that?
I don't know where I'm feeling.
Interesting. Take the person next to you. Take it down now. It's okay. Look a bit strange. Like this little guy. Tell them 3 things you're grateful for. What's good in your life? Tell them.
Family, friends. I took a class here off this work to do life, family, and friends. No, but because it was hot yesterday, and that's really
These simple ones in there that said, I'm grateful for my family.
Oh.
But in the back of your mind you went, but I've left those 2 out. Or if I don't kill that kid, I'll be grateful. That sort of thing. Who's grateful for the fact they're here today? Yeah, and it's that sort of stuff. It's that when you've got a positive outlook, you see positive things. And it's amazing what happens. And who knows someone who hasn't got a positive outlook who's contagious? You know those negative people who come in? Who knows the happiness vampires, you know? The vibe suckers, you know, you're sitting there, you're having a good time, they walk in and there goes all the happiness. Who knows a fear? Who knows a grief blower? Not a leaf blower, a grief blower. Someone who's got to find the worst thing to talk about at any time. I live next door to social housing, and it's great. They're lovely people, they keep you grounded. But there's a lady there called Kathy. Now, Kathy, not the happiest person in the world. And I'm out there mowing my lawn one day, and she comes up and says, "How are you, Greg?" And I say, "I'm awesome," because I'm working towards it. And she goes, "You know, you don't know how much of a bad effect that has on people who don't have a good handle on happiness." I went, "Kathy, go away." And she went, "Oh," and I went, "Look, I can't be responsible for your unhappiness. I just did the best thing I could do to be happy in the world. And I know you get upset about life sometimes, but just let it go sometimes." And she goes, "You won't take no for an answer, will you?" I went, "No. I'm going to be happy no matter what anybody says. That's my choice." She hasn't talked to me since. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm pretty sure she talked about me. But the key thing is good morning. It means all sorts of stuff. When I say good morning to you, how are you feeling today? How do you feel? Because when we have a look at it, we're looking most of the time our language, and you heard how important language is, and just those things that Barbie put in there. Our language affects our emotions, doesn't it? And if I said to you, how could we measure your feelings? This is from Yale. And Yale is got a program called the Ruler Program, which stands for Recognise, Understand, Label, Explore and Regulate Your Emotions. Wouldn't you love everybody to be able to do that? But the problem's a bit like this. This is actually a graph. That axis there, that's how much enjoyment's in the feeling. And that is how much energy is in the feeling. So how are you feeling? If you're in the red, we've got a problem, even though we're wearing red. I realised that you had a great effect on life today because every traffic light I came to today was red. And I thought perhaps it's the conference. But I did get a green one on the way here on the corner and I went, yes! Because every little good stuff helps. But that wouldn't be good for you. It might be good for me if you're in that angry stage. That's the high anger, high energy, high negativity. Who's a little blue? Down a little bit, a few issues in the life, feeling sad. Who's in the green? Chilled and relaxed, nice and happy, learning. Who's in the gold? Who's in the yellow? Share your medications, awesome. But that's where I want to be. I want to be there because you want me to be there because I'm presenting. So I've got to be energetic and grab it. But if I said to you, turn to the person next to you, tell them which colour you think you are today. You are? Some of you did think it through. Some of you might be here who's got that problem. Where do you think she is? I think she's in the red, right? See, when you look at this, you have to look at it. It's fairly simple to choose that, to choose a colour. And it's nice to choose a colour because then you know where you're at. But try this one. Turn the person next to you and give them the one specific word that describes how you feel now. Oh yeah, who just went like that? Who just went, one specific word. See, the interesting thing is with it, is we're pretty good at that level, right? But when I say, give me the word, we get like that, right? Do I have to? 80% of Australian males have alexithymia. They don't have the words to express their emotions. And where do they learn their emotions? Mum's knee and dad's knee, reading those stories. You notice most of those great stories take you on an emotional journey. Good things. That's where it starts. Yale does what they call a feeling word curriculum. This is not Australian. I have never had a child in Australia tell me they're peeved. Pissed off, but not peeved. But this is called an emotional words curriculum, because what it's meant to do is that you create this using events in your life. So all you have to do is look there and see if there's a word that describes things, and you build up a picture of how you feel. And then you can track how you want to move from one thing to another. And there are some words that I would reckon, down in that bottom corner there, alone is not the worst blue feeling I've ever had. I think I could get into depression there. Anxiety would be up in the red one, because it's got energy with it. Violence would be in that top corner where enraged is. But those are my words. Every group we work with has got words that we need to explore and have stories around and understand and say, why do you feel this way? And when we get the facility of being able to change our emotions, we're able to turn from that to what? Who's ever asked a man, how are you feeling? And he went, what? No. To that, where you could be able to plot how you feel and figure out what we could do to change it. So if you are angry, if a lot of people who get unhappy and don't have the regulation to change it, and who go through life a bit like that. Really? I don't know. Today I want to have a look at understanding emotional development in kids. And what does it mean for our resilience? Our resilience is about how do you cope with what life throws at you. And it throws it like, it's not some big thing in the future. It's not like, oh, I've got to train my kids to be resilient in 20 years' time. It's what happened this morning at the kitchen table. It's what happens when that fight happens over who sits freaking where in the freaking car. And you say things like, be honest, put up your hand. Who's ever said to their own children, you children are driving me insane? Right? Because it's insanity. But what they're doing is called sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry is this big battle over one scarce resource, which is called your attention. And the problem is with it is that we've got to understand emotional stuff because it changes rapidly. And I want to give you a picture of this, so I thought I'd start with a story. It's a told story, and it involves you coming over here. You might have to sit on the floor. Can we cope with that? I'm going to sit in a chair and you're going to have to be able to see my feet. So do this. Put your arms out like that. If there's somebody next to you, link arms with them. Stand up. Like that.
Come on, Jenna, you love that. Yeah, she got a big.
And we see if we get enough space to fit us all in and see me tell a story in that chair in the corner. You got it? So bring him over. See if you can count it. And he wrapped him in the blanket, and it kept him safe and warm and comfortable. But as little boy Zari started to grow. And he grew until he could walk and he could talk. And he picked up his blanket and he dragged it with him wherever he went. But one day his mother looked at the blanket and went, look at that blanket. It's covered all over with stuff. You'll have to get rid of it or do something with it. And the little boy said, but I don't want to get rid of it. I'll take it to my grandpa. He'll know what to do.
So I took it to his grandpa, who picked up the blanket and he folded it. And he picked up a pair of scissors and he snipped it. And he snapped it. And he stitched it. And he sewed it. And he said, hey, look, there's just enough material left here to make for you a coat. And the little boy put on the coat, and it kept him safe and warm and comfortable. But as little boys are, he started to grow. And he grew until one day his mother looked at the coat and said, look at that coat, it's too small for you. You'll have to get rid of it or do something with it. And the little boy said, but I don't want to get rid of it. I'll take it to my grandpa, he'll know what to do. So he took it to his grandpa, picked up the scissors, snipped it, snapped it, stitched it, and sewed it, and said, hey, look, there's just enough material left here to make for you a vest. And the little boy put on the vest, and it kept him safe and warm and comfortable. But as little boys are, he started to grow. And he grew until one day his mother looked at the vest and said, look at that vest, it's too short for you. You'll have to get rid of it or do something with it. And the little boy said, but I don't want to get rid of it. I'll take it to my grandpa, he'll know what to do. So I took it to his grandpa, who folded it, picked up the scissors, snipped it, snapped it, stitched it, and sewed it, and said, hey, look, there's just enough material left to make for you a tie. And the little boy was just going to school then, so he put on his tie with his school uniform, and he wore it every day, and everybody said, what a cool looking tie that is. But ties aren't the best things to wear to school. And one day his mother looked at the tie and said, look at that tie. It's covered all over with stuff. You'll have to get rid of it or do something with it. And the little boy said, but I don't want to get rid of it. I'll take it to my grandpa, he'll know what to do. So he took it to his grandpa, who folded it, picked up the scissors, snipped it, snapped it, stitched it, and sewed it, and said, hey, look, there's just enough material left to make for you a handkerchief. Very small handkerchief. When you do this with kids, you've got to go, that's a tissue made out of material. And the boy took his very small handkerchief and he put it in his pocket with his very small rock collection. And he kept it there every day. But after a while, even he had to admit it was worn out. So I took it to his grandpa, and his grandpa said, hey, and he said to him, hey, Pops, what can you do with it? His grandpa folded it, picked up the scissors, snipped it, snapped it, stitched it, and sewed it, and said, hey, look, there's just enough material left to make for you a button. He made it in the shape of a heart because he loved them so much. Aww. And the little boy took the button and he put it on his pants to keep his braces up. And everybody said, what a beautiful button that is. But one day, it split in half and it was gone. And his mother said, hey, look, you've lost your button. And he went, oh no, I'll run to my grandpa, he'll know what to do. And he ran to his grandpa, and his grandpa said, nothing I can do, it's gone. And so the next day the little boy went to school and he picked up a piece of paper and he looked at it and he said, hey, look, there's just enough material here to make for you all a really good story. But that's not the end of the story. Because everything that you ever learnt that matters involved losing something, involved some pain, involved you trying to figure out what was my authentic self in this world that gives me masks to wear. And all of the good stuff is when you take all the masks off and this is you. And you can have all your feelings and all your emotions, and you can be 100% here today. So this might look like junk, but this is everything you need to learn how to be an awesome person. Now, if you're over there, you might have to stand up to see there. If you're at the back, stand up, because it's going to happen here on the floor. Because you see down here, there's a pair of legs. Because you've got to learn how to stand up for yourself. You've got to learn to make your own way in life, and you're going to have to learn how to step up sometimes. There's a pair of arms, because you've got to learn to do some hard work and lift some heavy weights, but you've also got to learn how to hug and hold and cuddle. There's a blanket to keep you safe and warm and cold. Safe and warm on those cold Melbourne nights. Hobart, it's colder. There's a pair of scissors. Because being smart's not about knowing things, it's about learning to make and do with what you've learned. And there's a tie, because everybody's got to get dressed up sometime and create a good impression on someone, even if it's just to get married or collect a Brownlow medal. And there's a great big smile, because that's the most important part of you. And if you can't smile, grow a moustache. That's what my grandmother did. There's a good strong nose to help point you in the right direction and help you smell when things are bad. And there's a pair of eyes, because you've got to learn to see what's really there, not what you think is there. Because it's a Jewish story.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There's a kippah, a yarmulke, to remind you to always use your brains and always think first and always give your best to your God. And last of all, there's a heart. Because if you don't put your heart into things, no one ever gets to truly love you. I love you all. The fact that you've got the heart to bring yourself here today shows that you love your children. But we live in a world that stopped loving, have you noticed? And stories like this are incredibly powerful. I've told this in communities all over the world. My most exciting one was in Surabaya with 80 Muslim girls on one side in the Vale and 80 boys in collars and ties over this side. And I'm saying it in English in between two rooms with the door open and wheeling it in between, and they're hearing it in Indonesia, and we all understood. I had to stop because they kept applauding. But I've also done it in the dirt in La Germano with their asses on the ground, and had kids follow me around all day going, "You're magic. You're freaking deadly, man." And I do it constantly because, particularly with pre-primary kids, you get attention. Who notices that 2 to 4-year-olds can't sit still? In Tennant Creek, we had to buy them a wash basket to sit in so they could do silent reading because they're whacking each other and rolling around the floor. And I had to drive all the way to freaking Alice Springs, which is a long way, to buy 20 wash baskets so we could get silent reading started. Because there's that bit between when you read and you can see their lips moving, where now they're ready to read, by themselves alone in their head. But if they can't get their body still, we've got to figure out how to do that. But this works every time. And I can do it again and again and again. And then you know it works when the kids knock off the bloke. when they steal the pieces of paper. Every one of you has got a story that you love, one that's yours. For my kids, it was the Winnie the Pooh one where Pooh invents a game and Eeyore joins in. You know the one with the Pooh sticks off the bridge? And there's all sorts of great voices in there, but they never in the movies get Pooh in the right voice, do they? Because you should have a voice that's like, I don't know what's going on. And things which feel thinnish inside, when you take them out, and other people feel them, they're not as thinnish anymore. But they make him American with a high-pitched voice. And you go, it's not Pooh. Because those stories you own, don't you? And who's had a kid who makes you read a crap story again and again and again? We had an El Cheapo book that we bought for 35 cents called Jack's Tent. I can't remember the words because I blocked it out of my memory like post-traumatic stress disorder. But every night the youngest one would freaking bring it in. And good, you can read it in 3 minutes if you're ready, you know, bang, get it done and then let's get into the good book. And who's ever got to that bit in E.B. White's Charlotte's Web where Charlotte dies and you heard me, I lose my voice and I got to go, okay, Bonnie, you can read now. And give it to the kid, just to get us through. Those are the stories you own, but you've also got your own story. And those are the greatest stories we tell, because you are your story to the world. So, whoever you're close to there, turn to them. Tell them what your favourite book is, adult book. I'll tell you how bad this is. One of my favourite books, because I'm dyslexic and it took me as an adult, was Tom Jones, which sounds like a bad one because it's very sexist and bawdy and old. It's Henry Fielding stuff. And it was one of the first novels that actually got wide coverage. And the reason I like it is because when we were poor and we had kids, we had a little baby and I went to university. And I'm not good at reading or writing. But I found that if I could read a book out loud, I understood it. And even though I'm dyslexic, I'm pretty good at oral reading. I can't reverse the words then. And that's good. But we had a little baby boy and Kate would try to feed him and he was a little wriggler. And so I'd read, and if I'd read, he'd settle down. And we read the whole of Tom Jones together. Well, not quite, because he's got bits in the story where he goes, now if you're interested in the story, don't read this bit. But this is what I think about politics today, right? And he'd have a bit of a rant. So we skipped a fair few of those out. But we followed the story. And it got me really loving the sound of stories. One of my other favourites was To Kill a Mockingbird. Guess what my eldest grandson's called?
Atticus.
Atticus. Because it affects things, doesn't it? And it's part of your story as well. Turn to the person next to you. Tell them, what are your 2 favourite books? Kids' book that you love to read, an adult's book. Talk. The interesting thing I have learned in my own life is if you go back over there and think about those emotional things, when my life is down, I read books. Because story helps. It takes me away from my feelings and puts me in another place. And sometimes I read the most crap books, you know, I'm into those terrible shoot 'em up American crime things. But they always solve the problem, right? And they always give you that hope that even though it's all bad and 49 people died in this, he's going to find the problem, solution. And all that says to me is, you've got to find the solution. You've got to stand up for yourself. You've got to work your own journey. Walk your own journey. You've got to step up in life. And when we think about it, we are losing story. Story is coming from different places. It's coming technologically. Kids are learning stories through gaming. Some of it is absolutely fabulous and beautiful. Much of it's disgusting, violent, sexist, racist, and horrible. The trouble is that grooms them for the betting agencies. Kids who game, bet. And kids know the odds and all of those things because the betting agencies know all about story and what the odds are as these kids will work. We've got to get not only a literate community as far as reading, but we've got to become literate as far as emotions are concerned. And today is the best chance because you get a chance to talk to each other, work it through. And I'll show you some pretty amazing, interesting things on the way. I'm not a researcher like those fabulous doctors you had yesterday. I'm somebody who works with people and finds out stuff. But True North turns up, you know what works. And one of the biggest things that works is working with other people. What happens is your kids just seem to fly through life, don't they? Because the days are long. Who notices that days are really long sometimes? Yesterday mine was really long because I woke up in Portland, had to drive 3 hours to Ballarat, do a 1 hour presentation which turned into an hour and a half and which turned into 2 hours because they wouldn't let me go. Then I had to rush to the airport, hop on a plane and fly back home. And whilst I was doing that, I was designing all of this. Bloody long day. But the years go quick. Who's ever turned around? I turned around the other day and looked at my baby and she's 43. How did that freaking happen? I can remember her there. And what happens is with it, it happens so quick. And we shouldn't have to wait until we're 100 to find out how happy we are. That's from a series of photos called 100 Years Old and Happy. I bet you they're not his teeth. That's probably why he's happy. But when we have a look at it, we never know what lurks under the bed. And under the bed is a lot of things. When we think about what's influencing our kids today, it's huge. The amount of things. And we keep giving stupid things to them, like screens to occupy them. And when I was a kid at school, we used to have teachers who smoked cigarettes. Remember those? They used to smoke cigarettes in the classroom and on duty and in the staff room. But they never said, here you go, son, chill out, have a smoke. But we do this with screens, don't we? There's screens everywhere and we don't know what the messages are they're learning. But the research on that is absolutely scary. Because when we have a look at it, there's a lady called Jean Twenge. Spelt Twenge, but it says Twenge. She got 8 million student survey results stepping back from the 70s, right up until 2016. And she looked at the research and she said if you look at some things, you get a baseline. Like this is how it's been in 1971, 1972, 1973, and it's all pretty steady. And then it hits 2010 and things start to go. The amount of depression, 60% higher. The amount of anxiety, 60% higher. The amount of loneliness, 60% higher. The less kids going out, well, the less kids going out alone, having to go out with their parents. 20% different. Teenagers having less sex. 20% less. And you go, that's a pretty good thing. No, they're taking photos of it and they're watching more porn. I don't know whether that's an improvement or not. I don't think so. The amount of time kids spend actually out playing with their mates, 20% less. The amount of sleep at night going down, 1 hour's sleep every 3 years. Australian kids get only about 6 hours sleep a night. Adolescents. Every hour you miss in sleep is 1 IQ point that week. Think about it. They're doing their exams with no brains at all because schools test on Friday. And what's the common thing? What happened in 2010?
Apple.
iPhones. Phones in the bedroom. You've got a phone in your bedroom, you're going to miss 1 hour sleep a night. At least. Even if nothing happens with it. Even if it just sits there and threatens to ring. And you're twice as likely to suffer from mental illness. And yet we let these kids have them in their pocket every day. You try to take a phone off an adolescent these days, it's like, you are killing me. I think in 10 years' time, these will be like cigarettes. We won't have them anywhere near a school or a bedroom and all the rest of it. Who, admit it, who's addicted to this? I am. Partly. I can't help it, it calls to me. Even during your brilliant dance there, I had to dash off an email to someone. And I was really into this. It was great to watch, believe me. The trouble is with it, is it's getting piped straight into our kids' ears. And when this happens, we want to think, what can we do to raise kids who are resilient, kids who can cope with what the world changes with? But we're raising more kids to be victims. We've got 80% of our kids in ATAR this year, year 12, who have got clinical signs of anxiety and 40% showing clinical signs of depression. And this is ramping up in high school because the expectation is huge. And stress is the gap between who you are and who you are expected to be. 80% of our girls in adolescence are telling us that they don't like the shapes of their body. And if they could afford to, or if they were left to, they would change them surgically. Amazing. And what are we going to do? Well, love's not Instagram. My breakfast never looks like anything on Instagram. Because it's an impression and it's not lasting, but it's there to make people feel like the world is great. And we've got to teach kids this. This is the best clip. Parenting and working with kids looks like this, doesn't it? One, you've got to be high this. You've got to be seen. Kids want adults in their lives, and you've got to be seen. Do this, reach over the person next to you, just touch it. Just make sure they're there. Right? And then you've got to wear steel cap boots because someone's going to step on your toes all the time, aren't they? Who's got a parent in their organisation, you see them come and you think, oh no. Here they come again. Oops. Hang on, I've just got to go to the toilet. You know, it's that sort of stuff. We've got some people who push it. You need a hard hat because stuff falls out of the sky, doesn't it? Who's ever turned up and you think you've all got it right and you can't get the key to open the door? Or the sound guy goes missing. Things fall out of the sky. You just got to be resilient. You've got to hang in there with it. And you've got to be able to have a smile on your face. Even if you can fake it. Try this. Look at the person next to you. Keep your face still. And when you look at them, I'm going to say smile. See if you can do it and how good you go. Here we go. Look at it. Smile. And they noticed when you smile, it's got two parts to it. Right? It goes, the first bit you go, because you know it's fake. And then you look at them and your eyes go. And suddenly the relationship's built, right? A pair of sunglasses is great, but the biggest thing you need is an identity tag. You've got to know who you are. Because what we're going to look at, you know this ad? Otters can swim on their back in water. They get section off their brain. Otters are supposed to be the happiest animal in the world. And I reckon it is because when they go to sleep in water like that, they hold hands. So no one drifts away. But when people drift away, we end up with sad otters. And it's sad when you see a depressed otter. The world's pretty stuffed when that happens. And it's the littlest things that make the biggest difference. Have you ever tried the marshmallow test with kids? Here's the marshmallow test. I love throwing these at kids because they're health food. It said, no artificial colours. Zinging with sugar, but they're health food. Now, if I said to you, here's a marshmallow, you can eat it straight away if you like, or you can hang on to it until I tell you to. How would you go? Walter Michelle did this test with marshmallows and 4-year-old kids. He got 1,000 4-year-old kids, one at a time in a room. Hang on. And he said to them, here you go, here's a marshmallow, you can eat it straight away if you like. But if you hang on to it until I tell you to, I'll give you another one. And then he left a 4-year-old alone with a marshmallow for 20 minutes to see how they cut them. Did you hear the people over here? Oh. No, not oh. Fascinating. And fascinating stuff, like I've learned stuff like this from this activity. Like, if you do this, you look like a wimp. And if you pull it really hard, they go, and you look stupid. But I've found if you've got good literacy, you've got good literacy in your mind. You can read that sign. What does it say? Nice and loud.
Tear here.
Tear here. I'm dyslexic. I read it as tear here. I cried. You ready? Watch. I found another funny thing though. If you throw them at year 8s and they hit the girl next to the kid you were aiming at and they explode, every year 8 in the room goes, this guy's cool. Because they're really impressed by bad role models, right? You can put 1,000 good role models in front of a kid and no one's interested. Look, one idiot up there, one Shane Warne, everybody reckons they're fabulous. Now, Walter Michelle does this test with 4-year-old kids. He gets 1,000 4-year-old kids, one at a time at the big campus of Stanford University, and he says to each kid, here's a marshmallow. You can eat it straight away if you like, but if you hang on to it until I tell you to, I'll give you another one. And then he puts it down and he says, but I've just been called out of the room, and if it's still here when I come back, I'll give you another one. The kids fall into 3 distinct categories. Category 1 goes, they're called the grabbers. This is 1/3 of the kids, right? Category 2. I like doing this demonstration. Category 2 goes, can't do it.
Some of them use their other intelligences to distract themselves, like, I can't see it. It's a third of the kids. These are called the leavers. So I got the grabbers and the leavers. Then they got a third of the kids who they cannot describe. Because they did stuff that you cannot describe. They did stuff like... One kid goes, "Rrrr." But the kid I like is the kid who goes, then he gets all excited and goes, and then he puts it back. I don't know what the thought pattern was. The funny thing is once you've sucked a marshmallow, look at that. That's no longer marshmallow, it's changed matter. You can see that the Dr. Carl Krusenitzky for further scientific study, because Dr. Carl rocks. Doing science with adolescent kids. Why is your belly button lint, the stuff you dig out of here, out of your navel, why is it always blue? And you can do your own research, and if yours is a different colour, you can post it to Dr. Carl. Imagine working in Carl's office. Like, oh, excuse me. I better eat that because that's really sticky. What they did was followed, not stalked, followed, to see if there's any differences between the grabbers and the leavers. Two big differences and one little ones. First one, grabbers were much less popular than leavers were. The quicker you got it in your mouth, the less you were liked. When I do this with year 12s, I'd say, this is why you have no friends. You think you do, but you don't. Friends only get you into trouble. You don't need them. The leavers spent more time learning than grabbers did. So when you give a leaver something to do, they will try it. Grabbers will go, oh, this is boring, I'm not doing this. Oh, this is stupid, I'm not doing anything. But the big deal comes is 14 years later. See, that's no big deal. If you got a bunch of 4-year-olds in here and lined them up, you wouldn't even need the text, would you? You would go, lever, 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 grabber. Double grabber. I bet you this is a boy and his name starts with J. Yeah! I've got a hidden J. I'm a Gregory John, right?
Good night.
People can't see it. But the trouble is with this, is that 14 years later, these kids do their university entrance exams. SAT scores, 1,600 point scale. They find on average that the grabbers scored 210 points less than the leavers did on a 1,600 point scale. You go, how can one marshmallow make you that stupid, right? Because it's not one thing. It's not about self-esteem. We've been telling kids to praise kids and aren't they wonderful? And it doesn't work. Who's ever been to the primary school where everybody gets us honour certificates? But tell me I'm awesome, tell me I'm a good boy, tell me I'm a good girl. Not good. Self-worth, self-control, which you gotta learn, makes you successful. And when we look at it, This is not learnt alone. This is a similar study done in the US where they took all of the variables out of it. This was designed over 800 kids in 5 or 6 different centres so that they could get all the double blinds out of it, the effective ones. So things like, it didn't matter, and this one, it didn't matter whether you're a boy or a girl, how much money your parents had earned, whether your parents went to university or not, or what race you belong to. Because race in the US is huge when it comes to academic performance. It's even worse in Australia. They put this together and they collect this information, and all this was a simple tick box from a year 4 teacher or coordinator, a 4-year-old coordinator, and all they did was, have these kids got these attributes? It takes about 15 seconds if the teacher knows the kid. Who would love their kids to be able to do these things? Who would love their husband to be able to do these things? Who would love their boss to be able to do these things? Who would love their government? No, don't get me started. Yeah.
That was already done.
Is when you have a look at these are not done by yourself. Apart from appears happy, everything else there is built in a relationship. It's built with a warm body. Where do you get this relationship? Read them a freaking story. Sit down, be present, validate that kid, be around. Now have a look at those things. Kids who could do this were 4 times more likely to get a degree. 4 times more likely to be in a full-time job. 3 times more likely to be in a happy, stable relationship. Just from that. And kids who are not good at this, and I love the way they worded it, what they said, were much more likely to have negative interactions with police forces. Much more likely to live in social housing, much more likely to be addicted. And that's scary. And that was only 15 seconds of research. Just a snapshot. We know these things. They're not, as a year 8 told me, this isn't rocket surgery. It's not hard, but the hardest thing is to find the time to build the relationships, isn't it? It's not the relationships itself, it's how do we put people together to make this work. So let's build a relationship in this room. Fairly simple. Oops. Pair of eyes. Lock onto those eyes and go like this, go. And then walk across the room to be with him. Hi, I'm Greg. Hi, Mick. Pleased to meet you. Greg and Mick. What a great couple. Now, you do very well, Mick, because normally when I look across the room at an attractive lady and go, most of the time people go, oh, God. Because nobody wants a crazy old pensioner guy looking at them. Now the weird thing about this is that it makes you uncomfortable. Great learning is uncomfortable. Every great learning you have has got something where you're stretched a bit. What we're missing is the safe environment so these things can happen. I want to help you today make this place even safer. That anybody in this room could go to anybody in this room and get help and advice. That you would meet people outside of the groups that you work with and see how this organisation stretches further. But watch it, this might happen. Hi, I'm Greg.
Hi, Greg. It's Sandra.
Hi, Sandra. Now, when that happens, Nick, you've got to stand up like this and go. And you're looking around for some other poor left-out individual who'll go be your partner, right? Now, when you do this, everybody must move.
Because the biggest problem to getting people together is two things: gender, sex and territory. When you get to my age, that's bed and shit. But what the problem is with this is we do not get enough people talking across the genders about this. You notice that men think they're important? They take up territory. When I first started teaching primary school in 1980, that's before all of you were born, down in North Parmelia Primary School, not all that far from here, in the tough lands, I was the only male Year 2 teacher in the whole of the suburban area teaching junior primary. And I thought, trailblazer! It's got worse. It's getting harder to get males down there. And I'm not saying we need males, we just need good people, right? But gender's part of this. And territory's part of this. Because that's my job and this is not yours and stuff. And we defend our territory. We've got to move. I had a wonderful workshop in Melbourne last week where I had a quarter of the group were Muslims, a quarter of the group were Jewish, a quarter of the group were Christians, and a quarter of the group were people who were not bothered at all. And it was a wonderful day. Because we had a whole day going, can I shake hands with you? Or is that okay? Can I work with you? Can I work? Because we had to negotiate what we normally thought were normal. Isn't that great? And we started to learn about each other. By the end of the day, everybody was so happy. It was like, hey. But we don't do enough of that. Because we end up in our mobs, in our groups. We don't talk. So, look around the room. Find somebody from a different table that you're sitting at. Watch it. Or did you hear the put down over there? Beautiful top, but she went, yeah, you might have to talk to a duck, right? You might have to talk to someone you don't want to talk to. Excellent. Get over it. Have a look around. Watch it. The good partners go quick. Everybody's got a shift. Even if you just change chairs. And when you bring them downstairs, sanitation partners say you'll need an ear right away. Now the reason for need a knee eye to eye is I would think that 90% of all problems that are solved in this world are solved face to face with people. Would you agree?
Yeah.
They're never solved in an email. You'd like to think they are, but you can't see their face when they go, oh God. The problem is with it is that this has got power and it's not used enough. Put your hand up against your partner's hand, figure out who's got the biggest one. Okay. Hands down. Now, if you were with a man, he would go, look, mine's huge. Size does not count. But the key is with it, is as soon as we measure, we get unhappy. Who's noticed that? Who's got kids who fight over everything? When you're teaching, you say stuff like, line up. And there's some kids who kill to get on the end of the line. And what I like to do is this, you go, hey, great, you're here first, good. Turn around, we're going this way, mate. And the look on their faces are like, what? But I should be able to win all the time. No. Resilience is how well you lose, right? Not how you win. Being a winner may be the worst thing for you, ever. Got to get you a partner. Right? Grab Barbie. Barbie's a good partner. I've talked to Barbs. Grab a chair each, take a seat. Some chairs over there, come and sit down with each other. Talk to each other. You're not that busy. No, don't run away. See who's boss here. I'm used to bossing because I lead. Person with the smallest hand, you go first. And what you're going to do is you're going to tell your partner the story of your life. Now, at this stage, you say the story of your life and you're going, how much time have we got? Now, what it is like this. I love using a timer to get people to talk well. Who goes to meetings where people talk a lot? Who's got somebody, whenever they stand up to talk, everybody's eyes go, oh, here we go. And I'll show you in Working Elegantly what we need to think about. But the key thing with this is time stuff. And I love this. This used to be a 30-second timer, but I stood on it. So now I only put it on tables. And thanks to Kate's technical ability, we've got a 17-second timer. That's the ramp, and this is the walker. Who wants one of these, right? We're trying to get them sourced at the moment. I'm trying to do a deal with Ballarat Toy World, but they're from Lithuania and they're hard to get hold of, and it's hard to get them posted. Aren't they gorgeous? I know, and it's amazing how simple things work. I mean, Swan Hill a couple of weeks back, tough school, some tough kids. This big kid, I'm starting out there watching them doing bus duty, and he comes up to me and goes, mate, I love you. Can I have a look one day? Relationships, amazing, isn't it? Person with the smallest hand. You're going to go first. Now, you're going to tell your partner the story of your life. Now, in 2 trips of the elephant. Now, you don't have to tell the whole story of your life. You don't need, I was born on the 13th of December 1952 in Curran Road, Glen Huntly. I'm in my extreme 30s. I'm 67 this year. It's the Star of Bethlehem Hospital. That was on the right-hand side of Curran Road. If you're going north, Mum was in the 3rd bed on the left, Dad was drunk. No. Just the big chunks. Now, your partner's going to listen to you. The thing we have not taught this world to do is listen. Who sat through a whole meeting going, yep, cool, good, and then walked out and gone, what was that all about? I got no freaking clue. So it starts with this. Here's the actions. Put your hands up. Look at the person. Everybody say it after me. Look at the person. Don't speak. Keep your hands and body still. And remember what was said. Now, the way you look at people is how they're going to treat you. So if you look at me like you're happy, I'll be happy with you. Look at me like you're interested, I'll be interested in you. Look at me like you're cheeky and I'll sort you out. If you want someone to believe you're intelligent, look at them like they're beautiful. Check out your partner, have a look how beautiful they are. You might have to look for the inner beauty there, but it'll be there. Next bit.
No.
2 trips to the elephant, story of your life. You ready to go? Turn and face your partner. Look at them like they're gorgeous and go. Story of your life.
And I did it, but then we had to get
It's amazing what you can get in 2 trips of the elephant, can't you? How did your partner look at you? Did they look at you like this? Good. The key is with this is that you want to think about what is it. Put your hand up if you learned something. Big hander, you're talking. Little hander. Look at him like that, George Clooney. Story of your life in 2 trips of the elephant. Go.
Single mum, 2 boys. One's just turned 9 and the other's about to turn 8. Very active teenager. Today, birthday today, so I'm really lucky. So at the time, single mum, but we get so thanks to president on my PNC at boys school, so I know what's going on with them and make sure I'm informed, they love it too. Fell into plan, workshops and stuff. Now this year it's coordinated class at our school, so I'm learning the ropes now, facilitating for the So yeah, I love school.
They found out something that time that they didn't know. The weird thing is I do this with schools and I get the same reaction in schools and almost the whole school doesn't know each other because schools are too busy. They're too busy doing stuff that doesn't matter because we've lost discernment. We keep putting more stuff in, but we don't take any crap out. So we keep putting on there, wonder why aren't we don't get to it. When we think about it, if we went back to that previous slide about the things that mattered, wouldn't you love your kid to be able to learn how to get along with other people? How to solve problems without getting angry? How to appear happy? How to do all those things? That is the end goal. I don't think you really care whether the kid can do math or not. Although everyone can do maths apart from 5% of it. Most of us can't do maths because we've already been told by our culture, I was crap at it. You can't. You know, the worst thing we tell kids is that this should be fun. Go to school, it'll be fun. No, it's not work. If you go to school and it's fun and you can't do, and things go wrong, it must be somebody's fault. I love to do this. I saw a teacher do this recently. It was brilliant. She goes, here you go, here's your maths exam. She gives the maths exam, and then she did the old thing like we used to do. What was your score? What was your score? I'm thinking, you know, in the old days they go, and Mitchell, what's wrong with you, son? Nuns used to say things like, are your ears painted on? How evil's that? But I was always dumb because I come from the poor family and I can't read and write. And I look at everybody else and go, how come I'm smarter than him but he gets better marks? Right? But I'm persistent. I just keep going back. And my story is just all about getting up again and trying. And when you look at it, it's kind of interesting because what I find out with schools is that when she did this, I looked at it and thought, oh, that's terrible. But she's going, oh, okay, kids, now you go and work with those 2 people and you go and work with those 2 people. Now let's do the exam again. Let's see what we can get as a score together. Because I want every kid to walk out of here knowing that they can do it. Isn't that brilliant? That teaches resilience. It goes, well, I got that score, but I can, if I work with 2 other people, isn't that fabulous? And when we look at it, if you have a look at your story, there's stuff in there that you see, isn't there? Can you see me in there? That's me in year 1. They took a photo of us whilst we were still clean. Because that's the first 2 weeks of school. Then they put us in our normal classrooms. Who can you see in there? Where do you think I've changed a lot? I'm not in the first 2 rows, so I haven't changed that much. A lot of people want me to be that kid. I wish I was that kid. He grew up to be 6 foot 8 inches tall. Did that start there? Can't see. A lot of people want me to be the kid on the back row with the glasses. He grew up to be 6 foot 8 inches tall, had hair down to his butt, could surf like a god, and all the girls loved him, and he had the best ute in all of Phillip Island, and he could catch fish by just putting the rod in there. Me, I had none of those abilities. Top second row, fourth from the left. Because you couldn't pick it, because I was cute, right? There's only one thing that's still the same. The rest is buggered. And the funny thing is when you put this up, people say weird things. I had a woman in Melbourne go, "Is Vaughan Eames in that?" And I went, "Yeah, he's on the corner there." She said, "Oh, there he is. I married him once." Not married with him anymore. I was at Mazenod, the boys' school up here in the hills. And remember, this is Upway in the Dandenong Ranges outside of Melbourne. Great place to be born in, raised in and leave. And this lady goes, "I'm in that photo." I went, "You're joking." And she's second row, second from the end. And she now lives about 3 kilometres from me. And sadly, her twin sister's in there as well, but she died. But she said, her sister died because she was ill, but it wasn't a bad thing. It was one of those things that was kind of expected. But she said she left there after about 3 months, so I didn't know her. I remember in those days we had 50 kids in the room. And see, my whole story is full of these things. My mum was crazy. She couldn't look after me from when she was 2. When I was 2. My dad had been shot during the war, and I won't tell you where they shot my dad, but I'm a miracle. It's amazing what you can do with half the tools, but Dad practiced a lot.
Just a lot.
And we only found out 3 years ago that Dad was not shot by the enemy. And suddenly it all made sense. The alcoholism, the betting, the gambling, the smoking, the big blow up in the family every Anzac Day, the violence, and suddenly I went, why didn't I know that back then? Because we didn't do this ever. I had to wait for my dad to die to find out that my brother knew him even less. Because my brother had to write the eulogy because my dad died in Melbourne and we were over here. And when I read out his story, it was all wrong. He had him in different places during the war and all sorts of stuff. And I'm going, didn't you ever talk to Dad? He said, oh, about 40. Because I worked with my dad for a year and we drove up to work together and we talked and I found out his story. We don't find stories out. We need to sit. We need to put our bum in the dirt. We need to connect. And when we do this, you find out there's 2 things that drive everybody. The first thing is relationships. On the last day of your life, if you get a chance to talk, I bet you say, who loved me and did I love them? And the contribution you made to the world. And that's why you're here today, because of this. And these are the things that define us, and we don't talk about enough. And when you look at somebody who's fabulous at being resilient, who's ever heard of Nick Vujicic? Nick Vujicic was born with no arms and no legs. He is known by 1 billion people on the planet. 1 in 7 people know him. Because his outreach is huge. This is him a long while back talking to high school kids.
Kids, ready? Good. Hello! So what do you do when you fall down? Get back up. Everybody knows to get back up because if I start walking, I'm not going to get anywhere. But I tell you, there are some times in life where you fall down and you feel like you don't have the strength to get back up. You sort of put a mask on your face when you come to school and pretend that everything's okay when it's not, and you go home and lay in your bed when no one's looking at you and you don't have to impress anybody. And fear comes in. You know the fear that you have as soon as you walk into the doors of your house and you meet this broken person. Maybe you have doubt in your life. Maybe you don't know for sure what's going to be happening in the future and it scares you. Maybe you're worried about what people think of you, what people say about you. Just that fear paralyzes you. And I just want to ask you today, do you think you have hope? Because I tell you, I'm down here, face down, and I have no arms, no legs. It should be impossible for me to get back up. I mean, you go home and tie the legs and arms of your brothers and sisters and like push them down and see how long it's going to take them to get back up. You know what I mean? You know, you can tell them that you'll see them tomorrow. You know what I mean? And this is the thing. It should be impossible for me to get back up, but it's not. You see, I will try 100 times to get up, and if I fail 100 times, if I fail and I give up, do you think that I'm never going to get up? No. But if I fail, I try again, and again, and again. For as long as I try, there's always that chance of getting up. Does that make sense? And it's not the end until you've given up. And just the fact that you're here should persuade you that you have another chance to go back. Let's go. I'm not here today to tell you that I understand your pain. I don't know how it feels to be abused. I don't know how it feels to feel, quote, fat and you've got an eating disorder. I don't know how it feels to have a broken home. I don't know how it feels. I don't know how it feels to have a broken heart.
Isn't that brilliant? I love that guy. He's got three of the big resiliencies. His first one is he's got a great sense of humour. He reckons when you go down a water slide and there's people at the bottom and he comes down, you just go, what happened? He says when you're in a car and nobody can see he's got no arms and legs, and if a nice car pulls up and there's a nice looking girl next to on the other side, he looks at him and goes, and then just releases the seatbelt with his teeth and goes. You've got functioning adults. When Nick went to university and wanted to live alone, they let him. And they set up a house so he could do things. And he says the hardest thing to do is to cook. And the hardest thing to cook is eggs. And what's his favourite food? Eggs. He said, if you eat my scrambled eggs, you've got to put up with a fair bit of shell. Because I can't get it out till the end. But you can always spit it out. But his mantra is this.
Sit down like it.
His mantra is this. Be thankful for what you have. That's why I ask you to turn to somebody and say you're grateful to them. Dream big. Never give up. And the hardest part is with it, is some of us will fly through life, won't they? Who knows some genetic celebrities that just got it right? Everything's there. They can do things. They can not only fly, they can play tennis on the wings. And some of us, not good. And when you look at the possibilities, you've got to look at things differently. And people are not good at looking stuff differently. I showed this in Melbourne. This lady goes, I hope you don't show that to students. I went, why not? She said, well, it's really dangerous to stick your head out of a train. I said, you ever tried to stick your head out of a train in Australia? You can't do it. They're all sealed unit. Even Puffing's Billy, they won't let you stick your legs out anymore. And I said, anyhow, he's not the kid I'm going to yell at. She went, what do you mean? I said, it's the kid who's taking the photo. Because he'll die first. She said, you won't take no for an answer. No, what? We need that, don't we? Whatever we do, we need that look, isn't it? We're tackling a big monster, aren't we? Facing imminent death, but we're still happy. We should all be anxious because you're going to die. Look at the person next to you quick and go, but what happens with it is that you know the world will do stuff like this to you sometimes, doesn't it? But you see this boy being held upside down by his crotch by a sumo. This is absolutely the best day of his life. Because boys love dumb stuff, don't they? Who's got a boy like that, you know? Because he's thinking, you know that bit where you say to your kid, if he jumped off a cliff, would you? Yeah. If he jumped off a cliff, man, he landed on his head. He broke his arm, do it again, we'll get it on YouTube. Because boys love dumb stuff. But when you're up there, that's when you find out who your friends are, aren't you? Because when you get allies and you get people who care, you can push over any obstacle. The key to this is when we look at the development of kids, it goes in a sequence. And if we get all the sequences right, we get resilient kids. 0 to 2-year-olds, how do I make the giants obey me? Don't they? Who's got a little baby in a room and it just changes everything? You can have a cot there forever and never notice it. Put one baby there and they go, oh, and everybody goes, oh. Or they go, wow, I'm going to feed him, what am I going to do? Which end am I looking at? You know, all that sort of stuff. And they make you do stuff that you wouldn't do for yourself. Agreed? I've changed 11 of my kids between the grandkids. My oldest daughter, my youngest daughter's a fashion designer, so we've got 4 with fashion designer names. There's Atticus, Calypso, Eames and Silver. My son's a gardener, his son's called Max. We've got Ruby, Felix and Asher. But I've changed them all and gone, oh, aren't you so beautiful, and give them a kiss. I wouldn't do that for any adult. But they've just tightly got you because they're pathetic and you love them, right? And it's built in a dyadic relationship. You do it one-on-one. You can't fake this. And it doesn't matter whether it's mum or whether it's dad, but you've got to build a relationship with a kid or nothing happens. They're impossible. And it's primal. It's primal. It's there. Because we're mammals, we have to look after these poor, pathetic children until they can survive. But if we start the right movement there, we start to share print. Notice that the bodies are close together. They've got a pulse. If you want to engage kids, you've got to learn how engagement works, and it's pretty simple. They're tactile. Oh, Aboriginal communities, they're all hanging off you. I love it. I'm a tactile hugger. If you need a hug, I'll give you one, but later. If you want to check how engagement works, do this. Turn to the person next to you, quick. Shake their hand. Keep hold of their hand. Slip your hand up to their wrist. Check to see if they've got a pulse. If they're warm and they've got a pulse, keep holding on to it. Turn the hand over, look them in the eye and say, will you marry me? Marry me, you're engaged. What's this? I presume it's the father. What's this bloke doing to that kid? He's marrying that kid to the book. It's giving it meaning. And so what happens is, have a look at the difference between this, right? This looks cute, but isn't it dangerous? Right? As opposed to that. Why do we get loneliness? Because kids are getting occupied instead of engaged. Got it? So what happens, and the problem is, this is a fixed mindset. All these needs have to be met. But there's a problem. We've got parents who are welded in this fixed mindset. I had to say to a parent in a school just yesterday, day before yesterday, your child's not going to grow up until you do. And then I left, because she was not happy. But it was true. And if we're going to help our kids grow up, we've got to understand these first 2 years. Agreed? Who's learned stuff so far that just makes you go, oh, yes? But this is what we're going to learn. If we want them to learn the hard lessons, we've got to work with them. Watch this doctor. He's got a great job. He sticks needles into infants. Who would like that job? No one. Watch him at work. He understands that 2-year-olds, 0 to 2-year-olds need a relationship before you can work with them. Agreed? And they're going to do it through their eyes. You watch the eyes. Tell me when you see the relationship happen in this. Not yet. You watch. Here we go. There it is. Can you see it? Here it comes! Who wants this doctor for their children? It didn't work the second time, but the first time, what's that prove? If we look at it, we can teach our kids to face these things. But we've got to build those relationships. The problem is that 2 to 4-year-olds are designed to separate from you, aren't they? They get evil. Trouble is we've got so many parents who are trying to protect themselves from a world that's too harsh that they don't stop being 2 to 4-year-old parents. We've got to learn how to grow. So, your ticket out the door. Nobody ever works with me until they prove that they learned something. Turn back to your partner and figure out something that you like, stuck with you, information, ideas, stuff that you got in that session. Tell your partner. Off you go. It's time for me to be quiet, but I like to use things which get people involved. This is great. This is awesome. I'm going to ping this out to 3 different people and just find out what they liked. You ready? Good catch. Give me one thing that you stuck with you in that session.
I guess just the reinforcement of how society today has become transactional as opposed to having genuine and authentic conversations.
Because everything's transactional, isn't it? Who's ever noticed now you can go into a shop and not talk to anyone? Tap off, walk out. Don't even have to shop to do it. You can just, we're losing this. It's huge. And until we value it, we'll have to have tragedy after tragedy to make us see the need. Throw it over your head, don't look. I love the way these two did not react. Okay, give me one.
I think just reinforcing the importance of always staying positive and how that can spiral out to other people.
And it's not like I'm a happiness problem, because I'm just happy. But that's my choice. But it doesn't mean that I don't get down. But I learn how to pick up. I love the way you didn't catch it. Like you didn't go,
Hard to capture. I just think it's really interesting the effect that screens are having on children, and that they're having solitary activity on screens rather than those together.
And it's one of the main causes for early adolescence. You know, people who live closer to the equator have adolescence earlier. Girls menstruate earlier, boys get testosterone earlier, all that sort of stuff. Now we're getting that mimic because kids, they said that that's sunlight does that. More sunlight, more sunlight hours brings this out. We're getting more kids hit adolescence earlier because blue screens. Also because of weird stuff, more conflict in the family the earlier the girls menstruate. If there's a stepfather in the family, the earlier girls menstruate. Amazing. Have a look at Lawrence Steinberg's research on adolescence in the US. Fascinating. If we had time, I'd do a parent workshop too. You get to chuck it at me. Yeah, go now. Now, in the next session we'll look at catching stories, not just monkeys. And we're going to create some awesome stuff together. But in the meantime, turn to your partner, tell them that they're wonderful. Look at somebody on the other side and tell them that they're marvellous.